everybody, Tom Vasel here. Welcome back as I'm continuing to go through my favorite heroes, or basically I ranked all the heroes in X-Men United. Today we're taking a look at 41 to 50. Now, interestingly enough, many of the characters in this particular group are some of my favorite characters in the Marvel Universe. And that's fine. I try not to let that affect me on how much I want to use them, although if I'm playing a game, I still might use my favorite characters even if they're not as powerful. But these are pretty good, even though they're below the halfway point. Remember, I think for the most part, the heroes in X-Men United are pretty balanced. So these are all characters that I would gladly use. Let's get started. All right, let's start with WARLOCK. Not as well known as a character. I mean, he has some very potent parts of some of the storylines, but he kind of shows up in and out. But WARLOCK here, pretty cool character in many ways. He has several double cards. He can get a token, so he's 5 special cards, which is nice. Get an attack token, and then exchange tokens with another hero in your location, which is cool, not as necessary, I think, as it could be, but it's nice to have that. And even if you couldn't exchange the move attack and get an attack token, I'm pretty happy with that. Drawing a card, getting rid of a crisis token from your location or another hero in your location, that's pretty solid to have 2 of those in the mix. And then the card that he starts with here, where if it's face up, you ignore the first crisis token you get, that's pretty good. He's very specific. If you're fighting an enemy with crisis tokens, then you want to take WARLOCK, or at least if you want to have an easier time of it, because the fact that he can get rid of crisis tokens and he can ignore the first one he gets, that's pretty solid stuff. He also has a pretty funky looking miniature. I really like how WARLOCK looks, so there you go. Now we have Iceman First Class, which you'll notice I rank higher than the actual Iceman, even though I think I like the other Iceman's model better. The fact that he's throwing a snowball is pretty cool. I like this Iceman because he has a decent amount of attack, and his freeze tokens are pretty good. They don't stop the villain's BAM, but they stop the villain from moving, and that's combined with a move and attack, so I like that combo. It's just a good combo card. Ice Slide is a little less exciting. It's funny, you know, thematically wise. You place a frozen token in a location, and the game comes with a few of them. And then you place that in heroes in that location can move without doing a move action, but it's gone at the end of your next turn. So it's a little more limiting than I would like it to be. He's also not particularly heroic, this Iceman. I guess he's more about fighting, but he has some decent movement. WOLFSBANE's a character that's at this position on the list and higher than several other characters because I just like playing with her. I think she has some fun cards. So these Hyper Keen Senses, which is a wild at the bottom, which is pretty helpful, but if the villain ends their movement on your location, which is, you know, kind of a guess in many ways, although some villains are hunt somebody, you know, if she's a hunted person fighting Sabretooth or such, it's fantastic. But she can immediately move to an adjacent one and do a double attack there. If this works, it's just fun. I know it's not maybe uber powerful, but I like doing it. On the other hand, being able to move and defeat all the thugs at one location, that is a straight up power move. And then she has some double cards along with a few single cards. She's another one I think that's fun for people who don't play the game. You know, maybe they're new to the game, but I don't know. There's something about these 2 cards that feels good to play, and that's why I like them. Hey, Jubilee. I really like the character of Jubilee in the comics, and she has a nice, well-rounded there, with the exception of attacking not a lot of icons, but she has these explosive light blasts, which lets you do an attack against up to 3 different targets in your location, which can let her take out a bunch of thugs. And in fact, we just saw WOLFSBANE who can take out all the thugs, but she can take out 3 of them, or take out 1 of them and do a damage to a henchman, or maybe even hit the villain and take out a couple thugs. It's a little more versatile. And then being able to ignore the effects of the next BAM is some pretty solid stuff that it also comes with a heroic symbol to give other players. So I don't know that she's an uber powerful person to play, but she's fun. Blink is one of my favorite characters from the comics, especially when she was with the team that jumped from dimension to dimension. Age of Apocalypse was fantastic. And Blink has the same exact special card where she can move to any location. Then she can move any heroes to that location. That can be pretty powerful, especially you notice it's matched with all 4 symbols, She has 4 double cards, and I just like her. I think she's a pretty good character to have to a team. You'll probably want to throw in someone with some hefty attack on top of that. And the problem is, she's a little weak against villains who attack you as a group, and there are several of them like that, and that is maybe why she's not as powerful, because yes, she can jump, she can pull everybody in, you can do a lot of damage, and it's great if you're, once the villain's under pressure, she's one of the most powerful characters there is, because she can get everybody there, and then they can all punch that character, but she also has that vulnerability against the villains who hit everybody. Alright, let's take a look now at Bishop, who for some reason has a bit of a manic grin on the model's face. Well, there was a period of time where he was a bit off, lulu. But so a lot of heroic actions on Bishop for sure. His starting hand card here, where if it's face up, he cannot take damage from adjacent locations. That's interesting, but kind of very specific. Again, though, when you look at the way that he can help people out, so if you're ever looking for a character who is great at heroic, he's one of the best in that regard. His energy absorptions, where he gets an attack token, which kind of buffs up his attack a lot, and then ignore a damage to the beginning of the next turn, that's not bad either. So he's a pretty solid all-around character, with the exception of he has pretty bad movement. So, well, him and Blink working together is a pretty good combo, I suppose. Or anybody with movement, Bishop is excellent at that. Now we have Domino. Another probability person, just has good luck. Domino needs more icons, I think, but she does have 3 extra wilds. And this is a really cool card, this +3 attack to a single villain or henchman in your location with a move on it. I enjoy that. She has 3 cards here that have to do with probability manipulation. So with these, if it's the last card, then overflow is ignored. Then BAM effects of henchmen are ignored. Then villains can't move. All very good, but they're also all very particular when they can be played. Usually you have a problem with one of those things in general. However, it does give you some versatility, and so she's a good person to put on a team. You're just going to want some people who have like some oomph. They're going to let her specials kind of cover and stop the villain, but you're going to need, and she also has one that can also hit the villain. So she's not terrible. She has that hammer that she can drop, but I would put her with some people who maybe have some move and attack and definitely some rescuing, because that's probably where she's weakest at the heroics. Strong Guy is one of my favorite characters in the Marvel Universe. I just love his sense of humor, but he has a unique ability where when he gets hit, he stores it up, but if he doesn't release it, it can give him like a heart attack. And that is used on his 4 cards. You'll notice that they're all the same card with a different symbol on each. This stops him from taking damage. For each damage that he would take, he gets an attack token instead. If this card's face up and he has 4 more action tokens, discard all your action tokens in your hand. So he's a push your luck character. When you get these tokens, usually you want to use them. I've had him do I've had the negative action happen a couple times on him, because I start storing things up and I want to throw them all down at once. But you got to let off the energy. I think that's neat, because from a thematic standpoint, that's just fun. Other than that, he's kind of around the board, not terribly heroic, a little bit of movement, a decent amount of attack, but it's all about getting those tokens, because if you get that attack, you can do some massive damage. You just got to be careful not to overload. Why, hello, Human Torch. The figure for him, all in orange. Although, again, while I think he needs to be touched up a bit so that you can see the flames a little bit more. This is the second member of the Fantastic Four as we're going through. So far we've seen Invisible Woman, we've seen Human Torch now. With their marvelous teamwork cards, which let you put tokens, first you activate all the tokens on there, which means the first card you play, not that fantastic. But after that, you start putting tokens on there, and every time you play these cards, you get to use all the abilities on there. Which means if you have 3 of the Fantastic Four together, that can get pretty powerful as the game goes by. He also has this card here, his starting hand, which as long as this card is face up, he can treat heroics as attacks. Interesting, especially since he only has 3 heroics. But if you have a match with someone else who's heroic, that makes that more powerful. And then Nova Flame. Of course, going Nova is the Human Torch's ultimate thing. Discard 1 card, do 2 damage to everything else in your location, but then get rid of all the people. I wish that was a bit more Nova. That's all. That's the only reason he wouldn't be higher, because 2 damage is great, but if you have a villain going Nova, I want to do like 4 or 5. There is an attack on the card, and you'll notice he has several cards with double attacks. He's weak with heroics, pretty strong with attacking, and just kind of fun to play as part of the Fantastic Four. All right, Forged, the guy who can make all kinds of cool weapons. Not a lot of movement here. But what he does have, you'll notice he has a couple extra wilds. These Spirit Sight cards. Ho, ho, ho. Pick another location. You can use your heroics and attacks there. Any location. That's Spirit Sight. I call it snipering. That's pretty neat. And then as an intuitive genius, this lets you, for each of your heroic actions you can use to clear threats, you get to place 2. Which means Forge is probably the best person to clear threats in the game. Well, maybe there's one better one, but which we'll get to later on. But he's pretty solid, not to mention they're all here. Now, what you'd love to do is get a movement to have him move, put down 2, move, and put down another 2, if you can pull that off. And that makes him really powerful. Other than that, I think he's a solid all-around character, a little slow, but the fact that he can hit anyone on the board makes up for that. He almost made it into the top half, but still, 41 ain't bad. All right, we're halfway through now. You know what? If these were the only 40 that I talked about so far, these 4 lists, I would be content. Some pretty great characters. There's ways to put all these together. And again, some of these that I talked about today might be in your top 5. But I'll tell you what, there are 40 more heroes that I like even better than these. See you next time for 10 more heroes. Until then, I'm Tom Vasel, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.